What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Will of DDT. My name is Mujinator, and I'm coming at you guys with a Enel deck profile. With OP5 coming out, I just wanted to create a blueprint for you guys for my favorite leader of OP5, which is Enel. He is one of the most grindy leaders in the game. I feel like he is the spiritual successor to Queen from OP4. He's really good at going down to low life early and kind of just staying there for the rest of the game until he just out-resources you and out-grinds you to his victory. For those of you who don't know what he does, it's once per turn during the opponent's turn. When the number of your life cards becomes 0, add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. Then you trash 1 card from your hand. So you're basically always going to be healing 1 every turn if your opponent swings at your life while you have 1 life left. So this helps you keep staying alive, take some big hits, and only discard 1 card for it. Very efficient, and it helps you just grind out that game until you play enough big bodies and just close out the game when your opponent is low on resources. Like I said, he's probably one of my favorite characters this set. If you love decks that like to grind out, starve your opponent of resources while still keeping a strong hand size and dropping big bodies, then Enel is the leader for you. Alright, starting off the deck profile, there are a few ways you can build the Enel deck. The way I like to do it is by using the Sky Island package. Then the first way we do that is by playing 4 copies of Shura. Shura is the Sky Island Searcher. He is 2 cost. On play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 Sky Island type besides Shura, add it to your hand, and then place the rest at the bottom in any order. Just a regular searcher like every other deck has, but the good thing about him is that he has a trigger that lets him play himself for free from life. So if your opponent swings at you early, you get this card and trigger, you get a free search during your opponent's turn. It feels really nice. Alright, next up, I'm going to go through the 2Ks. I run 12 2Ks in the deck. The first 4 are going to be Capone getting Beige. I mean, nothing else needs to be said. It is one of the best 2K triggers in the game. It's a 2K counter. You don't really want to play it from hand. It's just going to be 2K in hand. But if you get that trigger to pop off, it allows you to pick one of your opponent's leaders or characters, and they can't attack for the rest of the turn. Really good at stalling out the game and just completely ruining your opponent's turn. The next 8 2Ks are going to be the Sky Island 2K counters. The first 4 being Canis. Canis, you don't really play her ever. Her on-play revolves around the stage for Sky Island. You don't really run that stage, it's not that good. So she is just a 2K, but she is searchable with Shura since she is a Sky Island card. And then another 4 of the searchable 2Ks is we're going to run 4 Satori. He's really good. You can play him. He does have a good stat line. For a 2K, 5 cost 5K, so he can swing if he is on the board. He also has a really strong trigger. You may trash 1 card from your hand to play this card. So if you get him from life at the end of the game and you need a few more swings just to close out the game, being able to play him from life feels really, really nice. Next up, we have 4 Brule. Again, with a deck that heals this much, you're inevitably going to be able to put some mash triggers in your life. Brule is one of those really good triggers you want to get in life. It doesn't feel too good to play her since she does cost 3. But if you have to, you can. She is low enough where it doesn't feel that bad. But her main value is being able to play her from life for free as a blocker. It's really good in a deck that is already really hard to kill. Next up, we run 2 Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, again, just a really strong trigger. You don't really want to play her too often because her stats are just really, really bad. 5 cost, 0 attack, but she does let you draw 1, net 1. Her on play is she draws 3 cards, then you can trash 2 cards from your hand. It's a really good trigger because it lets you get rid of a lot of the dead cards in your hand, get some more counter in your hand, so that way you can grind out the game a bit more and try to look for those big bodies you need to close out the game. Next up, we have probably my favorite set of cards in the deck, where you're running the Ohm and Holy package. So for those of you who don't know what the Ohm and Holy package is, it starts off with Ohm. So Ohm has an on play. you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, you can reveal a holy, you add that holy to your hand, and then you place the rest at the bottom of the deck, and then you can play a holy from hand. So it's really strong because for the cost of 4, if you find that holy in the initial search, you can play him for 5 with a 5,000 attack, and then you also play a holy with 5,000 attack. But another bonus to this is that Ohm, he has another intrinsic ability where if you have 2 or less life, he just gains 1,000 attack straight up. You don't need any Dawn on him. So for 4 Dawn, you're potentially getting a 6k on board and a 5k on board without having to minus Dawn like the Ulti Page 1 package. It's just really, really strong. Ohm's ability is really easy to get off because Enel is already a 4 life leader, and Enel does not mind taking life early, so he's almost always going to be at 6k early on in the game. So being able to get this package off multiple times in the game is just so much tempo that your opponent's gonna have a hard time trying to keep up with. Next up, we run 4 Gedatsu. Gedatsu is probably one of the strongest yellow cards that we got from OP5. And another bonus is that he is Sky Island, so Shura can search it. For those of you who don't know what it does, on play, you KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. This is really, really strong. It might be kind of awkward trying to work around this ability at first, but once you learn how to play around it, it can be really, really effective. A lot of people are used to just swinging really early on, like turn 2, just to get some pressure and getting that life low. But for Gedatsu, if you have him in your hand, you want to think twice about doing that because you want to make sure your opponent has as much life as possible before you play Gedatsu, so that way you can target higher cost characters when they play them. So a lot of things, a lot of ways you can utilize Gedatsu is if your opponent is going turn 2 and they have 4 Dawn, you don't want to swing at them because you know when you play Gedatsu next turn, you'll be able to target a 4 cost or lower. So having Gedatsu in hand, really high tempo, getting rid of your opponent's cards, really strong card once you get to know how to play around its ability. Next up, we run 2 of Character Enel. Character Enel, I think it's a decent card. It's a 7 cost, 7k rush. I think the true value of this card comes from its ability to stick on the board. So it has an ability where if this character would leave the field, so meaning if this card would be bounced or KO'd, you may trash 1 card from the top of your life cards instead. So that means if you are playing Enel properly and you're down to 1 life, you can use Enel's ability to stay alive if your opponent tries to remove it, trash the top of your life, then you can activate your leader Enel ability to get that life back and put it back to your life stack. So you're keeping him alive, he's really sticky on board, and he dodges a lot of removal. I think he's probably the first card in the game that can dodge a bounce removal, whether it's bottom decking or going back to hand. So he's really good for closing out games, and he can just put a lot of pressure on board once he's on there. Next up, we have 3 Charlotte Linlin 7 cost. I think she is probably one of the strongest cards in the deck just because her ability is so strong on curve and it's just so beneficial for Enel in so many ways. When you play her, your opponent has to choose whether they trash a life or they give you a life. For Enel, giving Enel a life is just making him survive that much longer because he's already staying alive so long with just 1 life. Giving him 1 more just feels really bad, and obviously trashing your own life and potentially getting rid of a good trigger feels really bad as well. So it puts your opponent in a really tough spot every single time you play her, and she just has really good stats, 7 cost, 8k attack, really good when you get her on curve and pretty much at any point in the game. Next up, we have 2 Charlotte Katakuri. Again, no explanation needed. If you've been playing the game for a while, you kind of know what he does. On play, you add 1 character with a cost of 8 or less to the top or bottom of the opponent's life face up. So that means you can remove just straight up an 8 cost or lower from the board and put it to the owner's life stack. You can use that to heal yourself, or you can use it to get rid of an annoying threat on the opponent's board. And in my opinion, the best card of the deck, we have Yamato. Yamato is probably the best card in the deck just because of the ability. The ability reads, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the total of your and your opponent's life cards. So basically, you add up all the total life on board, and that is the cost that you can remove. So if you have 3 life and your opponent has 3, you can remove a 6 cost on board. But then the second part of the ability is if you have 1 or less life, you just straight up add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. So you're healing 1 with a leader that is already so hard to kill. You're getting a 9 cost, 9k on board, potentially putting more triggers in your life, and also removing a threat from the board. Just so much value coming out of 1 turn with this character that you just need to run 4 of it, and it's just such an essential part of the deck. And to round off the deck, we are going to go to the events. We run 3 L Thor. L Thor is basically the yellow rad beam. Its counter effect is up to one of your leader or characters gains plus 2k power during this battle. But if your opponent has 2 or less life, it gains an additional 2k. So it can be kind of awkward having to, like, this is a late game card. You can't use it in the early game because it'll be hard in the early game to get your opponent down that low. It's especially hard to use this against Katakuri since at the late game he's dropping big mobs back to back. But other than that, it's really, really strong, yellow having a rad beam. And the trigger is pretty decent as well early game. The trigger is KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. So its trigger is basically a Gedatsu ability. Being able to use that early game helps you get rid of some early aggression that can help you last into the late game. And the last cards we run in the deck are 2 copies of 200 million volts Amaru. I think this card is going to be essential in my opinion. I think it is needed to help you close out games against decks that are really good at walling up. The effect reads, up to one of your leader or character's cards gains 3000 power this turn. Then, if you have 1 or less life cards, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Again, Enel wants to be at 1 life as long as possible. He is so good at just staying alive, just being on the brink of death, and you are almost always going to get value out of this card because Enel gets to 1 life so quickly. It lets you rest those pesky blockers like the Rebecca, the Borsellino, the Marcos since they become unbanned. It just helps you close off the game while still giving one of your characters enough attack power to help get through any counters they may have in hand. Alright guys, that was the deck profile. I'm going to lay it out for you just so you guys can have an idea of what the ratios are, and then we'll also get into some of the matchups and how I think that will be moving forward. So here is the entire deck laid out so you guys can take a look at the ratios in a single picture. Some changes that I mentioned before that I'm having trouble trying to make is just trying to find a way to fit another Katakuri. I definitely think the only way I can fit it is by taking out one of the Linlins. But again, I just find Linlin's ability so good on curve. It is so high impact. I just find it really hard to cut her out. But if you guys feel like a Katakuri has a lot more impact than that, then feel free to change up the Big Mom ratios so that you can fit it in Katakuri. Besides that, there aren't many other changes you can make in terms of the Sky Island package. There aren't many Sky Island cards out right now that are good enough to put in the deck. Maybe once OP6 comes out, the ratios will look a bit different. But as it is right now, I don't think there's much space to put anything else. So this is probably how I would build the Sky Island package generally. The reason why I like this over the Big Mom package is 2 reasons. I just love being able to play the Omen Holy package. I just think it's so strong. And also being able to use Shura to search out Gedatsu and help find the Omen package, while being able to find the Enel and the El Thors and the 200 million volt Amarus. Just a lot of good new cards to play. I find it very fun. Honestly, I'm kind of bored of the Big Mom package because we've been playing it the last 2 sets. I'd rather just play something new, but luckily the Sky Island package is still comparable. In terms of matchups, I definitely think Sakazuki is going to be this deck's hardest matchup. I know Sakazuki is going to be the deck to beat, and luckily, even though Enel doesn't have a winning matchup, I think he can put up a fight against that deck. Another hard matchup would probably be the Katakuri matchup, just because of how much he can heal and just how much pressure he just being able to swing 7 every turn. Besides that, Enel actually does well into most other decks. I don't think he has a really bad losing matchup into anything else. Enel can just grind out outgrind him with the resources, keep on dropping these big bodies like Yamato, Enel, Big Mom in the late game, and just starving the opponent out of resources while constantly healing, and also being able to finish off the game with resting the blockers and killing the blockers early game. It's just really, really strong. Let me know what changes you guys would like to make. Again, this is probably my favorite deck of OP5. He's also one of my favorite characters from the anime/manga. I think he'll be a lot of fun going into OP5 and just getting a bit stronger with some new support in OP6. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Feel free to leave some comments about what you changed, what you didn't like, what you did like about the deck profile. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.